So Indian government basically actually is behind the waiver because not because it does not know how to do a compulsory license, as you know, the Australians and others would like us to believe, the governments would like us to believe, and what a hangover, colonial hangover, to tell us we don't know how to apply our law when they have not been able to apply it in their own jurisdiction. In the European Commission should look into the reasons why it cannot issue compulsory licensing. Data exclusivity is a prime example of that barrier. So, despite the offer of the technical support, what really matters is, I think, two things. One is that the waiver is something that is an important tool for governments to continue pushing for greater access. And I think it should remain on the table, and it should not be withdrawn and should not be limited to vaccines, despite the current thinking that maybe we should go perhaps with vaccines first. I think absolutely not. We are on ground zero in India. We've seen people die without the drugs that they need. And we know that there are future breakthroughs coming through. And we absolutely, as treatment activists, would like to see, and treatment providers would like to see, drugs covered by the waiver. So I think there are two important issues here. One is that the European Commission, the USTR, and other pharmaceutical industry are collectively responsible for the failure of our compulsory licensing laws. That is one thing. And right now, the opposition to the waiver, by responding and saying that you can use compulsory licensing, is just not acceptable, because they have very systematically undermined all our regulators and our policymakers and have systematically opposed compulsory licensing. So I think at this point of time, the waiver should remain on the table, and governments should turn back to the European Commission and say, okay, if you are going to talk about compulsory licensing, this is what we want. These are the reforms that we want. And one of the reforms that I would like to talk about is shifting the requirement, or allowing people to file for compulsory licenses rather than pharma companies, and leaving it to governments or courts to decide whether compulsory licensing is applicable or not, because then the burden completely shifts on us to show every time whether delimit is needed and is of public health importance. So one of the crucial things to talk in the rights movement, and I think even from treatment providers' point of view, is that should organizations who work on public health, who work on health, who work in a particular area of access, be allowed, or individuals who are affected by a particular disease, be allowed to apply for a compulsory license or to initiate the process of a compulsory license. And how would that look in our processes, in our laws, because governments have failed, firstly. Regulators like competition commissions in our countries like India have failed to do the jobs. So what we need is not compulsory licensing at the expense of the waiver. What we need is the waiver and compulsory licensing for all other diseases.